It is impossible to research history and to research the conspiracy and to research the Illuminati without coming away a solid believer.
Well, listen up! There is a storm coming! Like nothing you have ever seen! And not a one of you is prepared for it!
But once you're in, there's a bounty on your head should you ever leave.
There's no more secrets, just ignorance.
Show, guys, it's episode 15. We got a great cast in here tonight. We got a great crew. Everybody's here. Everybody's smiling. What's going on, guys?
Let's make sure everyone knows who we got.
Yes.
Raina, nice to have you back. You were
Thank
filming
you.
a movie in Alabama, I believe, or you were down south doing something.
Yes.
Drug mule. Just
Yes.
saying. I'm just kidding.
My behind the scenes AD work, yes.
Very cool.
Good.
We Tony, hello. Helen,
How are you?
hello.
Hello.
Sid, hello.
Hello.
Tommy Black, hello. With special guest today.
Hi, Tommy.
Let's get him hooked up. We are going to be talking, we're going to keep talking about opioids, and we're going to also, we've got someone else that's got I think everyone at this, I'll bet you anyone off the street would have a front row view to an opioid addiction with someone, either themselves or someone in their family. I mean, it seems like it's that.
Yeah, either that or a friend.
Pervasive.
I mean, most people have even know somebody personally that's died from it, unfortunately, not just even just suffered from the addiction, but actually passed because of it. It's that prevalent. We just had a mutual friend that just passed within these past few weeks.
You're kidding me.
Wow.
Who, this was a friend of your guys's?
Yeah, he was way closer than I was, and actually like attended the funeral and whatnot.
I pretty much grew up with her, and she's struggled for years, on and off, and she was clean for a whole year, and then she got lonely on Valentine's Day, and it killed her.
That's all it takes.
And that is how I just started really researching this 10 days ago, literally when we finally locked Chuck and Vilma down, and I was very blown away by it.
Yeah, you were. I could tell.
But one of the things you just mentioned, which it seems like a lot of opioid deaths happen to people that have recovered. Their body now has adjusted. They take an old dose, and I don't know if this is what happened to your friend, but they take a dose that's equal to the strength they had built up to
that they're
before,
used to.
and that's what kills them because their body is not. That's the overdose. Is that what happened to your friend, or was
Absolutely, yeah.
That makes
that's what
sense.
happened. She was not. I mean, it was a carfentanil laden.
Oh, carfentanil, because that, we had an image up. I'll put it up for this show.
Is that what came up in the...
I believe so, yeah.
I mean, we've all heard of heroin overdoses. And the amount of heroin you need to overdose, it's a pretty good amount.
Right.
And like I said, I'm going to be showing this image when we put the show up
Especially
next
for
Wednesday.
somebody one of the things about heroin is it is an environmental drug. Where if you're shooting up behind, I mean, you've got junkies that can use anywhere, but you've got junkies that if they use in their house every night and they go over to a friend's house, their ability to overdose is doubled.
By going to a friend's house, you mean, or by?
The different environment can affect the way the drug affects you.
Wow.
Oh,
Oh,
really?
wow.
Isn't it very
Oh, because they're
difficult
just
to
used to it. A certain
overdose
place,
on heroin
certain-
alone?
Well, you've got speedballers, with cocaine and heroin, and yeah, that does.
It can literally be a mental thing, though, is what he's
Yeah.
saying. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, okay, so even what happened to me when we met, that was a mental thing. Like, it was looked at as though I could have possibly been overdosing because of my symptoms that night.
Oh, are we talking about
Yeah.
the night we met?
But it was completely a mental thing. Like, I could have been drinking somewhere else and not have talked about all those really touchy subjects and been completely fine. But the fact that I talked about all those touchy subjects, I needed to excuse myself from the room, and I just wasn't able to, recollect myself. But, I can completely vouch for, the environment thing. I've had horrible episodes that were just based off of my environment, and it's all
So
mental.
maybe the
It's all in
drug
your head.
interacts with chemicals that you've already got in you. You know, if you're at a friend's house, you're going to release some endorphins. Maybe does that amplify the power of?
I know that it's got a lot to do with with the addiction and the psychology behind the addiction itself, and the way that when you use the drug, there's a ritual to it, and a lot of that has to do with the addiction. Some of us have PTSD, and we're addicted to. We are all gluttons for punishment. Brain chemistry
All
is very
humans or all addicts
I would
or
say
all?
all
I think
humans.
all humans. Yeah, I was gonna.
Right.
That's not what you
Right.
meant. I was gonna say. I
Yeah.
think it's everybody.
This psychology has been grasped and utilized by big pharma, even the U.S. military. They control and
Two very trustworthy
are-
institutions.
are guarding our
Right.
poppy fields in Afghanistan.
Our heroin trade, from the minute this was another outcome, like one of the very important outcomes of 9/11.
Oh, yeah.
was the fact that we
Our drugs.
and it
like-
makes sense. What are the first? Now I know what the first three things our military did when we got into Iraq, and the whole Middle East. Number one, for some reason, we went after ancient relics. Very strange. We guarded the oil and we guarded the poppy fields.
Shame that nobody talks about Afghanistan anymore, considering how the war is far from over and remains the longest military quagmire in U.S. history. At this point, we should be asking ourselves a very important question. Bin Laden's dead and Afghanistan's apparently ready to police themselves, so why are we still there? See, aside from U.S. troops still occupying the country, there are over 100,000 private contractors in Afghanistan. And guess what? The Pentagon can't even tell us what the hell they're doing there. But this right here might give you a clue.
It is the most unintended and awkward consequence of our military offensive here in Afghanistan. The rout by our Marines of the Taliban from their former stronghold here in Helmand Province has put us in the weird position of being protectors of the largest crop of opium in the world.
And guess what, guys? The Taliban had banned and almost completely eradicated opium in Afghanistan shortly before the U.S. invaded. Just look at these headlines. The corporate media was even lauding the Taliban's success. Fast forward to today, where over 90% of the world's heroin originates from the war-torn country. According to a report from the UN Office on Drugs and Crime, this year saw opium production surge to a record high. The report said that the harvest this May resulted in 5,500 metric tons of opium, 49% higher than last year, and more than the combined output of the rest of the world. As reported by Global Research back in 2005, heroin is a multi-billion-dollar business supported by powerful interests, which requires a steady and secure commodity flow. Of course, according to Geraldo, it's nothing more than an uncomfortable fluke that the U.S. military happens to be guarding the largest opium supply in the world.
And since then, if you look at what the growth of heroin use in the United States is, it's off, and excuse my French, it's off the f***ing charts. It is.
I wonder if you see it right at those years.
Yeah.
2002, 2003.
No, you definitely do.
You see an increase beginning in 2003, and then in 2010, that's when fentanyl came out and its derivatives, which I believe would be carfentanil, and then there's another pseudo type of fentanyl that I mean, the image that I can't show you guys at this table right now, it showed the amount of heroin needed to overdose, which was, the equivalent of a thimbleful.
Right.
Okay? Then it shows the amount of just plain old fentanyl. That's the equivalent of a sprinkle you'd get on a cupcake. And then they showed the amount of carfentanil you'd need over, not visible to the
like
human
a
eye.
couple
Right.
It is
sprinkles, yeah.
microscopic. That kind
Wow.
of power,
Yeah, it's terrifying.
that just shouldn't even be in search. I mean, and I'm someone that. So here, I wanted to back up a little bit, just so we all. You don't have to answer if you're not comfortable with this, but I just want to take a survey of where this group is in terms of experience with drugs. So the first one I think is kind of a layup. Anyone here never had a cocktail before?
I don't think. Oh, you talking about drinking?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, anyone here never smoked pot before? We're batting 1,000. Anyone here never tried cocaine before?
I never tried it. No.
All right, we got 2 Girl Scout. No, I'm kidding. Has anyone here ever tried heroin before?
No.
Have. You said have.
Yeah, I was strung out for 6 years.
All right, we're going to get back to that story in a minute because that's the interesting one. So we were taking a survey. Again, basically, what's our cumulative experience with drugs, opioids, and we're not limiting it to just opioids. That's, yes, is a definitely a very addictive substance. Maybe the most. I mean, is there anything more addictive? Do we know? I mean, what?
No, I don't think so.
Well, you
I
were
mean,
talking about
cigarettes. Nicotine's very
Yeah,
addictive,
nicotine,
but
big
that's
time.
not
Sugar, I guess, is supposed
Yeah,
to be
the
have
sugar
a
is
life
the most.
addictive
smoking
thing.
cigarettes.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
can't
cigarettes.
have a life.
Doing
yeah,
heroin.
if it's one of
Heroin and
those
even opioids,
Or any
it's
opiates.
it's
causes you
temporary.
function. Yeah.
It's a
Yeah, I do
vicious
feel
cycle.
like once people do heroin, you sign up for death. I mean, and that's kind of always, unfortunately, the way I've had to look at it, because then I keep my feelings out of it, and I can not hurt so much when they might not make it. And that's a tough way to look at things, but like how we had to put ourselves in that nurse's situation with Vilma and Chuck's situation. They just see so many people, they don't want to get attached. They just do their job. But I don't necessarily agree with just barely doing your job, but it's just you do have to remove yourself in a sense for the health of the overall situation, or else you'll be of no help to them either, you know?
Well, I think the crack epidemic, that was another big one where you seen people that were, that you went to school with, and then they lost their
I
mind
feel like
and they were
maybe that
gone.
costs too much money now or something. I'm really not knowledgeable in it, but from what I know, it's like
That was like the 80s.
that was
Yeah.
You know?
and then now heroin's just like it's such a wider range because it does come from a doctor too. So you have that whole nother aspect of it where people aren't buying it off the streets. They're getting hooked through a doctor and then having to turn to the streets as a way to self-medicate when they can't get it anymore.
Well,
And
they've
that's
been
what I wanted to ask too. I didn't know what opioids was at all, so I didn't know it was.
So that's like Vicodin,
Yeah.
hydrocodone. Then you get more powerful versions that are like
a lot of
fentanyl,
people get it
morphine.
after
Yeah.
getting a
Oh,
surgery
wow.
or something. So you can imagine like a bunch of American housewives and like all types of range of people
Yeah.
that like wouldn't normally be doing drugs like off of a street that are getting hooked to this stuff and then having to turn to that because they have no other alternative. They'll get cut off through a doctor.
Well, many die from just the tablets, from
Yeah.
old people that are getting hundreds of these things.
Or from the withdrawal of it within itself, which is
Yeah.
crazy. Not even overdosing from it, but trying to get better, and the symptoms are so severe that you die.
It probably has a lot to do with a lot of the veterans that are taking their own lives. If they put them on all these drugs essentially to deal with their problems.
There's no way to
They-
deal
they
with it
can't work
properly
with
when you're all
PTSD,
doped up.
So they're on disability, and so the doctors will prescribe them these medications in mass quantity, 122 Oxycontin at a time for a month.
Yeah, did
Just-
you guys watch that TED Talk that was on our last episode?
Yeah.
Same thing. He was given OxyContin
Oh yeah, of course.
because he wiped out his ankle in a motorcycle accident. And the normal, productive guy gets hooked. And I've seen this with people very close to me, and I myself have flirted with it. Probably a few, it was like being on the edge of a cliff and just looking over.
Right, playing with fire.
And I used to want to have, I always said that I would have tried heroin, to try it as an experience, just to see.
See, that's the one thing that I said I always never would because I just know myself and I literally would die.
Well, after doing this research, I'm changing my opinion on that. I would not even try it now.
Yeah, please don't, because you're signing yourself and everybody up around you for just like a heartbreak. Like you will end up dead.
Would you guys
You'll
come to
end
the
up
funeral?
doing horrible things that
course.
are out of your
Whoever
character
goes
to support your
first, I will be at
addiction.
your funeral, and I will drag everyone else. If I go, you got Rand putting you in charge. Driving the bus to Dave's funeral.
No.
All right, well, let's get a little more serious because this is
From
serious.
natural causes.
Right.
The funeral from
Yes.
natural causes.
Yes.
Lord
yes.
Jeebus.
And the bloody knife and
Thank you,
Sid's trunk
Jeebus.
has nothing to do with this case.
Well, what it seems to me is that it's almost in a way where you see all of these wars that are going on, and America has this drug war, and it seems to take down just as many folks that die in any type of war or skirmish that happens around the world.
More.
They're talking
You know how
about
many people died to opioids last year?
70,000
and then
or
on
something
top
like
of that,
that.
how many people died for them?
Or you mean all the
How many
drugs?
people die for them in combination with the fact that it's like ridiculous?
I worry
we
about
go
it.
and send people over there to, to die.
Yeah.
So we can get it to begin with. How many of those people have died? And
Oh,
then on
gosh.
top of, they bring all these drugs back, which we don't understand is being funded and supplied by our own government.
Well, that's the other
Being
part, too.
distributed to what? To then put people in prison. So they make money off of
Yeah,
that
but you
too.
gotta
They make
understand-
money off of every aspect of this, and how many people are dying?
You got to understand something. The
debt.
people that are making these things, these aren't politicians. These aren't congressmen that are in control.
Well,
I'm talking
I
about-
understand, but that's
We're
just
actually-
the way that I say it, so people understand. I hate saying
They're doing exactly what they want. I mean, they are putting us in. It's a Hegelian dialectic. They also control the other side. It's been happening all throughout history. They were on both sides of World War I, World War II, Vietnam, and we documented that. And these people have publicly put up what their goals are. Just read the Georgia Guidestones. They want a population of 500 million on Earth. Because they themselves are deceived into thinking that we've got a population problem. So their goals are, it's going beautifully for them. I mean, these are guys that are involved in defense contracts. They're certainly at the Central Intelligence Agency. And, Air America got famous in the Vietnam War. But do you think that the motivation for that project is gone? Hell no.
Dude, they've got United States Army troops guarding Poppy Field. The president of Afghanistan. His brother was selling heroin and getting paid by the CIA. Heroin is everywhere. Okay, so you need to sell it. Someone's selling it. Who's selling it? I don't know, but 90% of it comes from this one place where we have to be to save our freedom. You can't criticize.
One of the hidden objectives of the war was precisely to restore the CIA-sponsored drug trade to its historical levels and exert direct control over the drug routes.
You know how many times, my buddy that's an FBI guy, he's on a narc squad, and they work with the DEA all the time. And do you know the number of times they are going to arrest a big dealer where someone high up comes up and says, do not touch him. And they'll have to close down a case they've been tracking for 18 months. Very frustrating. They don't know why. They don't see the bigger picture. They took an oath, and they're going to follow rules if they want to keep their job. And that never makes the news. You only find out about it if you have, you do this research or you have buddies there. And so from my perspective, I understand what they are doing. They are doing exactly what they set out to do. And the only people offering resistance are about 1 million little shows like this.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we are sheep.
Yeah.
Going off a cliff, literally sheep. And some people just don't, we just let our authority figures do too much thinking for us. So Tommy.
Yes, sir.
Can we ask you some personal questions? Because I think you've got
For sure. Shoot.
you've got the most experience. And dude, I appreciate you opening up about this. It's not an easy thing to do. All right, so you've got a history with. Tell us how you got started with. Give us try to condense it into about a minute or two, but get us from high school or whenever you started to modern day.
I graduated high school, went to college, Northwestern Michigan College, my freshman year. Then I was, experimenting with all different kinds of drugs, cocaine, mushrooms, psychedelics all over the board.
Now, was that for fun, or were you looking to soothe some pain? Why did you want?
Both. Probably both. My dad wasn't the nicest guy growing up, and so I had a lot of escapism kind of characteristics growing up, and my junior year, I met a girl and pretty much dropped out of college. And, we were going to do what I thought was cocaine one night, and it was Oxycontin. And we just snorted a line of it, and I felt better than I ever felt in my entire life. And it was off the races from there. One of my favorite jokes is, it's dark, but, I did heroin once for 6 years.
All right, I gotcha.
And that's a fact. And it destroyed my life. I had a house. I had, money in the bank. And all gone. Gone. just gone. I was on the streets, you know, doing anything I could to get a fix. Really, I could not function without it, and that went on for another 6 years, and then I met another girl, who pretty much put me back together, and we had a baby together, and I've been clean ever since. I had
Is
one.
this Sid? Are you the father of Sid's?
No,
Just testing. I want to keep our audience up to date on what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, since my daughter was born, I've been clean. I had one relapse in 2012, but it's not. I was in a very dark place in my life at the time. I had a bad relationship, and she brought it into the picture, and I had to separate myself from that. You know, get my daughter with my mother and keep her safe and make sure that she was entirely out of it.
All right, let's go back to OxyContin night. Was that the night? That's the night you mentioned? Is that the night where you think like it finally got a hold of you, or were like, did you know you were addicted?
That first hold from the first moment I tried it.
But could you, at that time, did you see yourself playing out the story we see on TV of, you know, the guy who tries it, then he's going back, and next thing you, did you see yourself in that role, or did you think, oh, I can dump this when I want to?
I started as a weekend warrior and thought, yeah, absolutely, I can quit whenever I want and all that. But yeah, no, it's just lying to yourself. It's just lying to yourself, you know. And it's made to do that. I mean, these drugs are designed to destroy. Like, I don't believe they're painkillers or anything. I believe they're designed to destroy. You know, just like the devil was sent here to steal, rob, and kill.
Yeah,
it is the devil's medicine. It is the devil's medicine.
It is. In fact, there's a word that comes out of the Bible, and it's called pharmakia. Now, it's where we get the word pharmacy today.
Right.
Now, when the Bible talks about it, there's 3 definitions of the word pharmakia, and pharmakia is a Greek word. Now, the Greeks were excellent at language because they're very descriptive words, unlike in the United States where we have a lot of metaphor in our language. Point is, so pharmakia, when you look at what the definitions are, it certainly can mean taking medicines. But the most interesting of the definitions, and one that actually has a lot of support biblically, which I don't know if you know, but after studying science and philosophy and history my whole life, yeah, at 42, I ended up realizing that the truth was actually the Bible. So the other definition for the word pharmakia is sorcery and witchcraft. Then what's interesting is, you know who John Todd is by any chance?
John Todd, I've heard the name.
Anyone else familiar with that name?
I think I went to high school with him.
This was a guy that was, he defected out of an Illuminati family in the early 1970s, and he went on a bunch of tours going to churches talking about how the Illuminati operates, who runs them. Remember, this is 1972.
Religion, not in purpose. Its purpose is political and financial power, complete world rule through finance, which they believe would control the political effort. It's been called by many people the Illuminati, which is called Mariah. In the United States, it's called the Council of Foreign Relations. It has many, many names wherever you go. I came out of a family that, I was a homegrown witch. From the time that I was 5 years old, I knew nothing but witchcraft. And my last name was Todd. But that was just changed about 60 years ago. Until then, our name was Collins. And the Collins family, my direct tree, was responsible, according to witchcraft history and a few history books that I can find also, was bringing witchcraft to the United States. It is impossible to research history and to research the conspiracy and to research the Illuminati without coming away a solid believer. Okay, first, most people found the Illuminati in things that have crossed their path. People found it in the occult, and mistakenly they have said, aha, the Illuminati is the occult. Then they have found it in the Masons, and they said, aha, the Illuminati is the Masons. Then they have found it in politics, and they said, oh, it's politics. So they found it in the international banking system. or they found it in Zionism, so they list it as just being that. Actually, it is all these things and much more. I talked on the Illuminati. I talked on the physical kingdom of the devil. But there is a spiritual kingdom, too. And without the spiritual kingdom, that physical kingdom wouldn't function. Did everybody hear that question? Okay. He wants me to explain the Council of 13. Reach in your billfold and take out a $1 bill real quick. We'll settle the whole thing. I'll let you ask your federal government later how this got on the $1 bill. On the back of the $1 bill, you'll see the crest with the pyramid in it. The Illuminati is the occult organization that we belong to. It means the light bearers. The witch is called Mariah, the conquering wind. But it's the capstone above. The eye is Lucifer. The triangle of the capstone is the tribunal of the Rothschild family, which is called the Holy Family. They lead the Illuminati. They are the voice. The doctrine of the occult teaches that Lucifer comes and sits at their dining room table. When they see the table, they leave 13 chairs out, and the 13th one is for Lucifer to sit in himself. They set him a plate and everything. Now, I've been there in the mansion, and I've seen this go on. And they, in turn, direct to the top block of that pyramid. And that top block is the Council of 13 of the Grand Druid Council, which I was a member of. It is the same system that Rome had. And part of my authority was whatever governors, senators, or political people were in my area took direct political orders from me, from the orders that we got from London, from the Rothschild family. Now that's the Council of 13. The best way is to find out who belongs to the CFR or who belongs to the CFR. Every man in the Council of Foreign Relations and every man in the Trilateral Council believes that Lucifer is God Supreme, has declared it, has taken a vow of secrecy, and has dedicated his life. David Rockefeller is the head of both the Council of Foreign Relations and the Trilateral Administration or Council, which is the name of the Illuminati within the United States. The Illuminati name's not used much anymore, except by everyday people who find out about it. Witches don't use it. The organization doesn't use it. Rothschild and a few people in the Illuminati were born Jews. But they're not Jews. An Illuminati person believes in Lucifer, the God of light, peace, love, blah, 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 and so on. When I was 10, as I said, I learned a little about the Bible. It just happened to be all revelations that I learned. And all of a sudden, we were discussing a world ruler that would be personally guided by Lucifer that could gain control of the world supernaturally. Your warfare is not physical, it's spiritual. And every Christian should memorize Ephesians 6:12. The Rothschilds lead the Illuminati, and in every country they have a family, with the head of that family being the head of the Illuminati. In the United States, we have the Rockefellers. They don't give the orders. They simply repeat the orders that was given to them by that capstone called the Rothschilds. They own countries. They don't pick sides in a war. They cause a war and put both countries against each other, even though both countries belong to them. They don't have sides. They have a purpose. Satan has every religion except that which is under the blood of Jesus. I sit on a council of 13 people that take orders only from the Rothschild Tribunal in London, which they claim they take their orders directly from Lucifer. Now, the Council of 13 is right there because they are the Rothschilds' private ministers. The Illuminati functions as all of the pagan governments used to function of Babylon, of Moab, of Egypt, of Greece, of Rome, of Scotland, of Ireland, and so on. The learned elders of Zion, or the synagogue of Satan, that were Jews that believed that Lucifer was the true God, okay, existed before the Illuminati, and the Illuminati came, used their teachings to start the Illuminati, all right? But they're not Zionists. The Rothschilds are Zionists by birth, but they quit believing in Yahweh hundreds of years ago.
They're not public yet. In fact, it's in their interest to not be known yet because they didn't have all their chess pieces in place. They do now. We are sheep in a herd, and they already know it. This herd is not going to. It's going off the cliff. The Bible even said as much, predicted everything else that happened. I'm assuming it's going to be right about this one, too. You can see it. So John Todd, he had said something, his particular background was in the music industry. And he said this actually happens for all of the businesses, that the institutions that control humanity. And I'll put up that elite control grid that we showed on a few episodes before. And health and medicine is certainly one of them. Entertainment is another. And what was interesting is John Todd had said that every major recording studio, all of them have a little ritual temple in their headquarters.
Really?
And they actually do a ceremony, a ritual. Now, this is where, when I first heard this, it did not compute with anything I had learned in my life. And I didn't even believe him at first. I now believe what he was saying was absolutely true.
The thing about rock music was I was the leader of Zodiac Productions, which is the conglomerate that owns almost all of the rock booking agencies and production of concerts in the United States. Almost 95% of the groups that you hear in concert belong to contract to Zodiac Productions. The Illuminati doesn't produce rock music to entertain you. They don't produce rock music to make money. They don't need that money. They own everything anyway.
What part do demons play in the writing and performing of rock music? Everything. 100%. There isn't a record album you buy that has not been cast on by a Coven when the tape was first done. That's mandatory. That's required. And a demon is ordered to go with every rock album that comes off of that master tape.
When you take something that belongs to the devil into your possession, you're asking for trouble. Certain objects are inspired by the spirit of Satan, by demonic influence.
I can't think of any other occultist who's been more influential on rock musicians than Aleister Crowley. No one close. London Times called Crowley the unsung hero of the 1960s. And they put their heroes up on Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band album, and who did they place there? Aleister Crowley. In fact, that whole album, as we show in our rockumentary, was basically a tribute to Crowley's New Eon, along with their Satanic Majesty's Request by the Stones that the Beatles put out with Sgt. Pepper. In fact, we make a really clear case for Sgt. Pepper being Crowley. In fact, Crowley died 20 years before that album came out, and of course the song 20 years ago today, Sgt. Pepper taught the band to play.
It was 20 years ago today, Sgt. Pepper taught the band to play.
Jimmy Page has admitted being an admirer of Crowley, practicing Crowley's magic for power and so forth, and they became very powerful.
Rolling Stones. Mick Jagger has told openly that when he was in jail before the Stones was ever formed, he sold his soul to the devil. That's impossible, but he did it anyway. He sold his soul to the devil to become the leading rock group in the nation, plus get out of prison. He is the leading rock group in the nation, in the world. There's more to it than records and books. And she demanded that a demon enter every book that came off the press. The musicians who do the music that are in witchcraft do the same things to the record album. And they order a demon to go into every copy that comes off the press. Most of them were in the occult, but most of them were on drugs. Now, I want to say something real quick here. Most rock musicians get their music while on drugs or from spirit guides, which are demons. Sorcery is the use of drugs. It is not witchcraft. In fact, the base word for it is the same word that pharmacist comes from. And it's the occult practice use of drugs to obtain supernatural powers.
And that is that literally when they would cut a record, it's the opposite of a blessing. It's almost like a curse. A demon will literally go in each vinyl record, because this is the 70s. And it will now, you listen to this type of music, and you will have a demon in your house. And that is one way. And it's not like you just have one, dude. There's billions of these things. And pharmaceutical industry do the same thing. So I wouldn't be surprised if there truly is a high level of sorcery and cursing.
They say that happens with TV as well. Demons coming out of
Oh,
TV.
yeah.
Do
you
not
want to talk about smoke and mirrors.
Look, we all believe there's a spiritual world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, who are the inhabitants of the spiritual world? Do you think it's our souls just milling about looking where to go next? Or is it possibly the Bible, what it said is it's filled with demons and essentially angels? Lots of different types of them. And I'm personally there, which is just strange because I was a science guy, and science guys don't say this unless they go crazy. That's what I thought. Maybe I have gone crazy.
I mean, that's part of the process, Dave.
Yeah, you got to go crazy to
Yeah.
figure it out.
It was
I'm
all a part of the
serious.
process.
You have to let go of what was known as like sane to you to know the truth.
No, that happened 7 years ago. I mean,
But, I mean,
it was a 2-year process.
It's a whole nother crazy, Dave.
It
There's
is.
levels to the crazy.
Right. You got to lose
There's
the
levels.
I'm not on cray level. But
I don't think you can get to this level.
He cray.
This is a special unlocked level
I know,
that
yeah.
only I can have.
I know. It's
I
secret
can't just
hidden
give you the
gem.
cheat codes to this one.
Okay, so OxyContin night. And so you fell in love with Oxy that night.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
Oh, yeah.
and you, when your girl said, "Hey, we're going to do Oxy instead," were you excited about it, or were you like
She
a
didn't
little
tell me.
scared?
She didn't tell me what it was.
You didn't even know
I
till
thought it was Coke. It was white. I thought it was Coke.
I think it's a Lansing people thing. They're like, surprise! It's a
Surprise.
whole
Wow.
other joke. Like, I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's not cool.
It's happened several. It's happened to me before, so it's like I don't know. People do that. They want somebody to do it with. They don't care about. They don't care. It's messed up.
It is
but
messed
I've
up.
had it happen to me where, oh, it's not Coke, it's meth. And all of a sudden I'm on meth and I'm like doing everybody's laundry. It's like 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm like just
Wait,
doing
wait a minute.
laundry and
if we give you meth, you'll do laundry.
I'll do
No,
everybody's
no,
laundry.
come to my house.
We're gonna have to have a meth
I will
show
do
in 6
everybody's
months.
laundry.
Yeah.
Everything will be super duper clean. You know, it'd be sparkly. It'd be like Snow White.
I don't see a problem
Be
with
birds
that.
chirping.
No.
As
Yeah,
of
but then
now,
you look like a
I'm pro
zombie.
meth.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
when you do want to sleep, you can't even sleep. It's just it's not healthy. It's not. You know, especially when you're
deteriorates your
expecting to do one thing and it's a whole nother thing. It's like the wrong kind of surprise.
Well, that thing is true chemicals, in any of that stuff, and the way that you hear that the meth is made, and it's
You don't
rural
know
for some weird
what
reason.
it's made out of.
Yeah, but it's a very rural thing. I mean,
Well,
it's
wherever it's made out of, it
Right.
gets abandoned and no one ever moves back in there. I mean, it's poisonous.
to the home. Yeah,
And even with fentanyl, like there are actually, I don't know if this was a possibility or if it's actually happened, but even superficial contact with fentanyl can kill you. That's why police wear gas masks and gloves whenever they're dealing with this stuff. Because even exposure on the outside apparently is still
enough to kill you.
It's
Dang.
got, that's at least what they said. Now, I don't know if there are actually any police officers that have died handling it. I'll do some research and put it up for this episode.
Fentanyl is so deadly, it's causing deaths at mass casualty levels. And taking it off the street is more critical than other drugs because any dose of fentanyl could be a fatal one.
And we don't know yet if that's heroin or fentanyl.
Correct.
But that could potentially be deadly.
Oh, yeah. And the scary thing is you can absorb it through your skin.
And that's why you wear these gloves.
Yes.
Well, a lot of the medications are very toxic, though. When people
Well,
take
it's funny, but so if you think about our whole pharmacy program, and this is where I
what
was
they
getting to.
make our food with. I mean, they wear hazmat suits when they cultivate what our food is grown in. If you can wrap your brain around that one.
Think about it like this. Because there's, I don't put marijuana in a drug class. I think for it to be a Schedule 1 drug is effing laughable.
Oh, absolutely.
What I do?
I've always thought
here's what
that one.
Now, does this sound satanic to me? Yes, it does. Because what's illegal? Something that grows naturally in the ground is illegal.
Right.
And
Yes.
frankly, if you ask me, if I'm a cop, I would rather deal with a mob of high people than drunk people. In fact, I would rather deal with a mob of high people than sober people.
Yeah.
I mean, they're very passive. They're friendly. It's
Absolutely.
open-minded. So basically, you take weed out of the picture. Every other drug that's in the top, who knows, certainly the top 10, they're all synthetic. They're manufactured. They're processed. Or if it's liquor, it's distilled. It's got to go through technology
Yeah, it's
to
made
reach
by
its final
man.
form. And what's the end result? Every medicine that I've ever discovered, it might solve one problem, but only to cause another problem. It's like an unending domino effect. And that, to me, that's a demonic system, whether on purpose or not. That to me, has Satan's signature
It
on
is
it.
on purpose, and it is meticulous by design. And as you said earlier, it works splendidly.
It is. It's working beautifully.
Own and run those poppy fields. We are poisoning ourselves. This epidemic is fueling
Our troops are over there
our
guarding.
wars.
Yeah, do you know how many soldiers come back? I've seen these press conferences
And
where
they get
some
on the
guy
trucks
that got a
themselves.
medal is doing a press conference. And he's like, the real reason I was over there was to kill innocent families and to guard drugs, you can take this medal and he throws it into the crowd and everyone just stands up cheering.
There's a term, once a Marine, always a Marine, but there's also the term, eat the apple, F the core. I don't work for you no more.
My officers explicitly told me and my fellow Marines that if we felt threatened by an Iraqi's presence, we should just shoot them and the officers would quote-unquote take care of us.
We fired indiscriminately and unnecessarily at this building. We never got a body count. We never got a casualty count afterwards. Ladies and gentlemen, things like that happen every day in Iraq.
Helicopters screaming over their heads at night, and I'm trying to calm the women and children while the men were dragged and separated out and completely humiliated in front of their families.
9/11 was a lie. I know it. We're soldiers. We know it.
I had a personal experience after one of the talks that I did with a man. He came up to me after that, and he told me he was an Iraqi man. And he said that he was from the area around Balad, and I was stationed in Balad. And I just couldn't help it. Just all of a sudden, I hugged the guy. And I said that I was sorry, that I was so sorry. And I ended up crying right there to this perfect stranger. And he told me it was okay. You know, he told me it was okay. And that was redemption.
Episode. All right, so let's get to some questions these are the questions I think the audience, this is what I want to know that I would never really ask anyone in any other circumstance. Because there are some people that are going to listen to this that are on that cliff right now. And in a way, I want you to scare them. I mean, it's America. We can do what we want, but we're going to be listening to someone that was on the other side of this, and we still need to find out how you got back over, but one step at a time. So you do OxyContin. You're a junior in college. And you're a weekend warrior doing Oxy, right?
Right.
For how long are you a weekend warrior?
It might have been 6 months, I think, longest, before I was doing it every day to go to work.
So did it pop? Did it go from weekend warrior to daily, or did you start to, it's Wednesday, we're in the middle of the week, I'm off tomorrow,
No, I was dope sick. I could not function without it. I couldn't go to work. I couldn't get out of bed.
Just by doing it on weekends?
But once I got to the daily, like, because, you know, I would weekend, and then, you know, I'd meet her after work on Tuesday, and we'd do it. And then, you know, it just became daily.
Quick sidebar, where's this girl now?
Doing the same thing she's been doing.
Still doing
forever,
it?
Yeah.
God, it's hard to do
Wow.
it. It would seem. How deep into it were you when you were no longer able to cover it up and to make your life work, to be showing up to work and family function? At what point was it essentially known that you got a drug problem? Like, when did you, in a sense, come out about that?
It took about a year before I was really in the shits and spending everything and had track marks up to my neck and was rough. I looked rough.
Hold on, was that because you could no longer get the Oxy, or what made you jump?
That's correct.
Because you couldn't
Oxy
get it
became
anymore.
Too expensive. Narcos were harder to find. Heroin.
Yeah, and that's what
everywhere.
that has been a driver of the heroin increase. Is doctors cut off their patients from some kind of a morphine type, an
Right.
opioid of some sort, and then to fix themselves, they're like, what do I got? I got black market heroin.
James Mollett is a recovering heroin addict in Huntington. His story, like so many others. He took pain pills for a back injury, got hooked, and turned to heroin when the pills became too expensive and too hard to get.
So what made you decide I can't keep doing this?
I was losing everything. I lost everything. I mean, I had rental properties. I had my dream car, a motorcycle, boats. I mean, it's a messed up drug. I mean, it's a real demon. You know what I mean? In my opinion, it's a demon.
And it's cheap and it's everywhere. You go to any street corner in Detroit and get it, or anywhere in Michigan, really.
I was going to say the new dope dealers are pill pushers now.
Well, and a lot of them too, you see, even with being through the cave, there was a show, Overcoming Addiction, that was doing pretty much the same that, these couple episodes we've been doing here. And the suburbs, these kids are the ones that end up on that. When one of the suburb kids dies, there's big rallies and fundraisers, and it does get to the news. And now you're seeing a lot of these families that are shattered because their child went out and,
Well, now it's becoming so prevalent, it's not a news story anymore.
Correct.
Like
Epidemic.
there fast.
I didn't know that people were actually craving the fentanyl. I thought that was something that the drug dealers were adding in, and people were dying because of that. I didn't.
You can't get just heroin without any trace or touch of fentanyl in it. I think around here, around this area, and I know this area well, around here, it's almost in everything.
I didn't realize that people were actually going out looking for that drug.
Oh no, it's even worse. When they when
Well, you're right about that's
When
crazy.
a user hear that someone's OD'd, they try to go find that dealer because they know it's the good shit.
That's
Sorry,
the
pardon my
reverse.
Golly.
That's the. It's like.
That's messed up. I didn't know that either.
No, that was on that
Make you
that guy
problem.
that I don't know if that ended up making it, but he's like, it's a reverse world because you think, oh my God, this dude just sold someone who OD'd.
Wow.
He's gonna get all the business now.
If somebody overdoses from a drug, normal people see fire and they run the opposite way. Heroin addicts run into the fire. You know somebody overdosed from it, it must be good. You're going to do exactly what they did. It's the name of the addiction.
Like there was a town.
so
in,
crazy.
There was a town in Virginia. I made a
Twilight Zone.
reference to it in episode 14. But in a 4-hour period, this town had 26 overdoses. And they tracked it all down to one dealer. And why? Because after the first guy OD'd, everyone else in town went over there.
And 2 weeks ago, in a matter of just 4 hours, 26 people overdosed in one West Virginia town.
All 26 patients that overdosed within that 4-hour time period were within a few blocks from where I'm standing. Authorities were able to trace the potent batch back to one drug dealer.
Obviously, this heroin was laced with something. I do not know for sure. It took more Narcan than normal to revive them.
Well, we hear about how people become hooked on heroin, which is they start out taking pills. When they can't get pills anymore, they start to turn to stuff on the street, and that turns to heroin. It's a lot cheaper. And then when states started cracking down on the pill mills back in 2011, all of a sudden we see this rise in heroin use across our country.
Well, it's the psychology behind it. It's what they're using to control us. I mean, anything they can do to control us, whether it's population or
We kill ourselves
Well, hold
that
on.
way.
Yeah, isn't
So
it
it's
personal
like a
choice?
suicide pill.
Death is profit.
But it's personal
It's all
choice.
free will,
Killing
right?
people
Quote unquote.
to
This is
fuel
our free
wars,
will.
Because war is corporate business, and everyone we kill over there is fueling wars that mean nothing.
You guys know who General Smedley Butler is?
Mm-hmm. It's a racket.
Yeah, he wrote a book, 1933, called War is a Racket. He was a top-level general, and he had pledged his whole life to the United States, and he came out in the early 1930s basically going, I'm nothing but a mafia hitman for the richest gangsters in the world, which are the Illuminati. And he didn't use the name Illuminati then.
Right.
Smedley Butler was a United States Marine Corps Major General, the highest rank authorized at that time, and at the time of his death, the most decorated Marine in U.S. history. In 1935, Butler wrote a book titled War is a Racket, where he described and criticized the workings of the United States in its foreign actions and wars, such as those he was a part of. Butler is well known for having later become an outspoken critic of U.S. wars and their consequences, as well as exposing the business plot, a purported plan to overthrow the U.S. government.
Used the name Illuminati then.
Right. Skull and Bone Society.
It's the same
Illuminati.
guys. You can follow them all
Oligarchy.
throughout history. This is the true power in the world. And just like the Bible said, the rulers of the world are going to be Lucifer worshippers.
Right. The
It's
business,
the big secret.
The
It's
politics in this country are not done in the White House. They're not done on the floor of Congress. They're done on golf courses. They're done in bars in the back room.
Yeah,
It's
or at
filthy.
Masonic temple gatherings.
Right.
There is a secret. It's what Bill Clinton said when who was the press secretary that asked him, because he had vowed to open up the alien files in Area 51. He was asked, and I forgot her name momentarily, but he's like, "What's up with the UFOs, Mr. Clinton? I thought you were going to tell us about that." And he's like, "Sarah, I think was her name. Sarah, there's a secret government inside of our government, and I have no control over it."
Is there a government within the government of the United States? What is it called? Yes, Illuminati. Is there one earthly leader of the Illuminati? If so, who is he? Philip Rothschild.
And frankly, every president says it. They just, they just don't say it at their, at the State of the Nation address.
Right.
Yeah.
Or at any podium.
All
Well, I
right,
think
so-
that's why Kennedy was killed, because he was saying so much.
Oh,
Yeah.
right. There's a
Yeah,
backstory
everybody-
on
that's-
Kennedy that's not public.
Yeah.
You're not gonna have Anderson Cooper gonna summarize it for you. But he absolutely woke up. He was a president, and he didn't realize what he was involved in until after he was in office.
Okay, I'll give you a bombshell you're not going to believe. John Kennedy was killed because he became a Christian. Kennedy got saved 3 months before his death. That's why they killed him. But it did happen. He was saved down in Tampa, Florida, through a man that helped arrange the Bay of Pigs that became a Christian a few months earlier, and then witnessed to him along with a couple of ministers, and he gave his heart to the Lord. And they tried to call him back. The Pope even ordered him into a private audience a month before his death and ordered him to take Mass, and Kennedy walked out of the place refusing Mass.
But he shared a lot of this with Mary Pinchot Meyer, his lover. And she shared it with Timothy Leary or Brian, which one? I always screw that up. Doesn't matter. The LSD guy. And she's all over the place saying, Jack was what she called Kennedy. Jack's waking up. He's realizing this is demonic. Like, we are up against the devil. And what was he trying to do? All of evil's institutions, the Federal Reserve, was trying to wipe that out. The CIA, he was trying to wipe that out. And instead they wiped him out.
Mm-hmm.
So, Oxy. When was the first time you admitted to yourself? Now, first of all, because I've dealt with addiction before. And there is the internal voice that you share with no one that speaks first, where I'm like, I have a problem, but maybe I can just get rid of this without anyone ever knowing it was a problem. When did that thought ever come? When was the first time, from the time you did Oxy that first time, how long was it before you started thinking, ooh, I got a problem here?
Same time, about a year, right around when it occurred, when I couldn't function without it. Like, I knew it was a problem. I couldn't tell anybody, really.
Now, most people that it seems that get to this place end up committing crimes to get the money to keep doing that. And I think statistically, on average,
I plead the fifth hoop.
should be and I had nothing to do with the robbery.
I think there is a lot of that, and that's what drives up our insurance and all the other things. When you go steal a car or break into a car, and it's a big circle.
Right. And so when someone drives to crime for a drug, like, what are they worth? Just a little bit of money. So when they die, their death is profit.
Do you think that people get to the point where they're actually hoping for death? That they're so tired of the game?
Addiction is
Yeah.
toying with death. As close as you can get, baby. That's the high. That's the high right there.
And do you think that they don't realize that could be their last high? That they may not, if they die, that's the last time they can get high.
Right.
I mean, of
Yeah,
course
but
they should be looking.
I think
When
when a lot of
when
them
you're-
wake up the next day, I would almost think some of them are disappointed, like I'm alive.
Some
That-
of them
does that make
are.
sense? Do you know what I
Absolutely.
mean?
Nikki
Some of them
Sixx.
get to that
I
point,
mean,
yeah.
the drug itself and where it had taken me had me so suicidal. I didn't care if I lived or died.
Right.
Really.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's how it is for everybody.
Well, that's
strung
what they
out.
live for at that point. So really, like,
else
you're
is there,
willing to
right?
die for it. I mean, that's your next thing you look forward to.
Yeah,
is
that's the
the
last
They
bigger,
don't know
better
how-
high
they
from
don't know
last
how
time,
to get
or
out of it.
that
It's just-
that one that you got the first time. Like, I've always heard that there's nothing like the first time. So they always kind of, it's like this unrealistic thing that they go
Just
after
chasing
that
dragon, baby.
until
Can't ever catch it
they
again.
die.
Well, and it shows you how.
Chasing the dragon.
Yep, because you can't ever get that first high again.
That's
Tough.
what. Wait, what'd you just say?
Chasing the dragon.
Yep, chasing the dragon.
What's the code that he just broke?
No, I'm
Satan.
just, man, my
What'd you just put together?
Luciferian.
I hate saying stuff. My ex, I found stuff, and I was always like very. He hid stuff from me.
Naive.
And, yeah, I was very naive to a lot, and I didn't know a lot, even though you would think that I would. and Love is Blind. But I remember reading something along
And Deaf
those
and Dumb.
lines.
And Duff and I just said Duff and Dan.
Along those
But yes.
lines, and I didn't know what it was, and I think he tried to convince me it was a bong or something. But
You are
I
not
just
going to
knew
trick
better.
Sid
So I
about
knew
bong.
I knew better, you know, and I was scared, and I've never been the one to narc, but I even like told his brother, like at the time, because I was like, hey, like this is fucking crazy, like I don't even know who I'm sleeping next to, like what is this, like I was worried, but I don't know, that when you just said
It's
that
like
I was
Jekyll and
like
Hyde, you know,
scared me. I don't know. All of a sudden, I'll learn stuff that's like still blows my mind. That it's like, wow, I had no idea what's been going on these past few years of my life.
I have a similar experience, and I was very naive to that. Growing up, it was never in my circle. I never knew anything about it, and someone I was very close to, you know, I didn't know anything about it, and at the end of that 8 years, I knew way too much that I never wanted to know. You know, it's the devil.
My brother was saved from.
Oh my goodness.
My brother was saved from Redford Fire Department and the police from an overdose with the Narcan. And I met him at the hospital because I got a phone call that he was there and was taken in by the ambulance. And seeing him wake up, he said, you know, he heard my voice and that's what woke him up. He said he could not. He said he had the worst taste, like dead flesh, for about 2 months after.
Really?
Like because he was dead. And luckily our cousin came in and he was on the floor, called the fire department, and they were able to bring him back with the Narcan.
Well, it's when they get calls now, because this is what happened after show 2 with us when you had that thing next door. The
Yeah.
police, now I get it. Now after researching this, now I understand why it wasn't just ambulance people there. There were police, and everyone's asking everyone, "Where's the heroin? Where are the drugs?" And we're like, "What are you talking about? What are you talking about?" And
Did they really?
Oh yeah, they're like, "Oh, this has all the signs of a heroin
Funny
overdose."
story, not really funny. I've been falsely arrested in the township of Redford because my ex assaulted me and pinned me down and everything in front of my child. And he knew the cops were going to get called. So when they got there, he told them that I assaulted him. And because my only defense while he had me pinned down is I could bite him, I had this man's blood on my face and didn't know when the cops arrived.
Wow.
And I was just so beside myself, you know. I was still couldn't catch my breath.
Level of betrayal. Absolutely. I've had
and they
someone do
took me
that.
to jail because they thought that I was on heroin. Because he told them, God knows what, I don't know. And I literally went to jail that day.
Wow.
And he heard me screaming. We ended up in the same jail, and I didn't know they took him too. He heard me screaming for hours about how I was scared they were going to take my baby away, and eventually dropped the charges. But he made me stay in there like a day to teach me a lesson.
Wow.
Sick.
And I shit you not, I had to run from the jail. I know this. The jail's like right there, not
Yeah.
far. I didn't have any shoes on or nothing. They took me with like a tank top and like some shorts.
Oh.
No even undergarments on, nothing. And my son had to watch me get pulled away and thrown in a jail car or a
Police
car.
car. Yeah.
While he's sitting there smiling.
This isn't Christian to me, but this is someone like my gut will react. I'd like to.
I've seen the devil in his eyes.
Sorry, Lord.
In
You
like
and me.
a music video
You and me got
before.
daggers for this guy.
And it makes me want to puke. Because you literally go from, like, thinking you know somebody to, like, you know, something takes a hold of them. And then you become somebody else that you don't even know anymore. And you have to let that go for your own sanity and health.
Yeah.
Because you will lose everything. And they don't even feel remorse at that point. They don't feel.
No.
They're not the same people.
Soulless.
So for you to expect them to react like that same person, it's just not logical, even.
Right.
So these are things I'm literally still learning in this seat today, you know?
New one.
Thank you.
I was about to put my old one in. I'm
Not
like,
the one I used.
we'll go exactly. This
That's
thing's
so
got more
classy, Hoop.
mascara on it than.
Thank
I
you.
had like buffalo meat sauce on that.
But yeah,
I-
that's crazy. And the cops are so they're not trained to react any differently. So it's like
They see it quite often, I'm
they
sure.
see it so often. They don't know. Like for example, they wouldn't know a drug addiction from a mental illness if it killed them.
And they always play. They're just instructed to follow a certain stereotype, treat it uniformly, and believe me,
Protocol.
they capture a lot of wrong fish by doing that.
I think this particular lady like got bullied as a child, but she got a mouthful for me, so I'm cool with it. We've made peace.
Which lady are we talking about?
The Redford lady that arrested me.
Oh,
They were very like spiteful towards me because I had put a PPO out on him, and then I was like, due to my circumstances, I like had to go back, and they just didn't understand that. That makes their job harder.
It does.
And so to them, I was just like this failure that like, why do you go back to this piece of shit? You know, why are you putting your kid in this circumstance? And they all, on top of that, they think I'm a junkie. So it was just, they didn't care who I was or, you know, what I had to say.
Yeah.
Well, I think isn't it now kind of mandatory that if they are called out, that somebody's going, right? They're going to make somebody leave. One of the couple.
Is it?
Right, in a
I don't know.
domestic
I don't know about arrested, but I mean,
Yeah,
definitely somebody has to leave.
Right.
Yeah.
And if they have to come back, like otherwise, if
You
they
have
have
to
to
be
come
escorted.
back, they'll be somebody's definitely going to jail.
Yeah, and
Both
if
of them
I-
are going to jail. And all
Yeah,
that.
I'm actually
Yeah.
dealing with this a watered down version of it because we were dealing with a alcohol problem in my home before, and you know this was my ex we're talking about, and two different people. Like the world saw a couple of glasses of wine, ex, bubbly, fun, but they were never around for the 2 bottles, ex, and that. Like, I love this person, but this person's also hurt me more than any other human ever will at this point.
Right.
And I kept coming back for just a lot. And then when I finally just said, I don't want to have anything more to do with this, it's still continuing to this day.
Well, I mean, anyone in a relationship, I mean, it isn't the right thing to do to run out on somebody, right? I mean, if you love this person, you're trying to.
The experience Sid had,
Well,
where
yes.
you get blamed. And this is why I probably will never get involved with anyone that has a substance abuse problem, at least one worse than me, ever again. You know, I'm now old enough where I can't date anyone because everyone fits something I will never do again. Right? So I'm in the clear on that. But when it came, but it's the same thing. This person accused me of hitting her. Now, I've never hit a woman. Well, except for my sister. Now we beat the hell out of each other growing up. I've never touched a woman or been abusive in that way ever. But in my little small town, she starts spreading this rumor, and next thing I know, my phone just stops ringing, and she's like, "I don't know what's going on. I have no idea." And I found out a year after the fact that she was spreading these because I still don't have a complete picture other than I was starting to put pressure on her to look, man. You got a decision to make, drinking or a family. And she chose drinking. I mean, my son doesn't have a day in, day out mom and dad at home because liquor won, or at least that round. And the feeling, the emotions, everything from you want to kill this guy to you just want to break down crying out of frustration. Like, why is this person...
Why won't they change?
Why won't they take responsibility for it?
The worst one is when you understand why and you hate yourself for it. Because I can understand why he's like that. And so, you know, me as an empathetic person, I'm not stupid. I'm not a stupid woman by any means, but I have been abused my whole life. So I have abusive traits myself that I don't necessarily want to have. I don't promote these actions. I don't want to be this person, but you are your environment. You are what you're taught. So I'll literally isolate myself for however long I feel is necessary so I don't hurt people around me at sometimes. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought this up because when I get into an argument with someone, I have to block them on Facebook, not because I'm trying to send them a message, because when I'm fired up, this is where I've got my dad in me, and I recognize it, and but I will literally block them so that I don't say something even worse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because when I'm in that moment, that's one of my demons.
At some point, we get into this cycle where it is addicted to be in these relationships with these narcissistic, sociopathic
Two
types.
words. Those are the two words I was repeating on the way up here: narcissist, sociopath, and I just kept thinking
And
those
psychopaths.
are clinical names for demonic possession. Is
Right.
all it is in my mind
Right,
now.
and they feed off of us. And just like her or you, we get into the same kind of addiction, the same kind of cycles where, just like we have to break an addiction, we have to break this cycle. We have to break them using us for their own emotional benefit, for their own rewards. Like we are constantly having to protect ourselves from these, and it in itself has become an epidemic. We're destroying ourselves as a people.
Look, there are more narcissists. I mean, it's hard to gauge this, but you can go find articles in psych journals that are talking about this explosion of narcissism.
Social media has
Selfies.
And what I think
That's what did it to me.
Oh,
And
without
cave
a doubt.
radio.
Look, again, another prediction in the Bible that in the last days the love of people would grow cold, and it is ice cold right now in this world, and it will never get. It's just going to keep getting worse, in my opinion, because I believe the scriptures now.
Right.
Are you a Bible reading guy?
I am a Bible reading
You
guy.
seem like that's two
Why?
in your life, by the way. He seems like a good man.
He's also a liar.
Just throwing it out
I am
there.
not.
But I don't think he's lying about the Bible because he knows why Satan is here to kill, steal, and destroy.
What's so funny? We talk about that chasing the dragon thing, and the dragon is the Satan. Essentially.
Yeah.
That's the serpent.
So let's.
I call it the devil's medicine, heroin.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's talk about how we got cleaned up. And tell us a little about that. Did you make it on your first try? You said you had a relapse.
No, I had tried several times. It took me about 2 years to actually get off of dope and start to walk in my own new moccasins. I got away from that girl. I isolated myself and sweated out.
Did you do a program or anything like that, or did you do
in
it
the
on your
beginning?
own?
I tried methadone. I had been in and out of rehabs, and nothing worked for me.
Not that I
12-step
trust what
programs
doctors have to
worked for
say,
me.
but they all say that this is something. If you're dealing with an opioid addiction, you've got to have someone overseeing your tapering regimen, because it can be fatal if you do it wrong.
But those drugs that they use, Suboxone, methadone, to wean you off of
Vivitrol or Vivitrol, I think was another one.
Vivitrol, I believe
Yeah.
it is. To wean you off are just as equally addictive as the heroin is.
Right, but just
in
with
half the
less
time.
side. Right.
It'll take to rewire your brain.
That's what I call the Hegelian dialectic. Whatever you
Unreal.
choose, it's the devil's plan.
Yeah.
You're in his
It's
system.
corporate. It's like
Damned if you
it's
do,
like Big
damned if
Pharma
you
sets
don't.
you up for this, and then the U.S. military kills you off. I mean, it's terrible.
All right, so 2 years is how long you actually struggled with trying to quit.
Not the military,
tell
government.
us, give us some of the highs and the lows in that period. And maybe let's start off with a low so we can finish on a high. What was your lowest point? Or tell us about that moment and what you went through your mind. Or the first one that comes to mind.
I had quite a few low points. I had just scored and was banging up in a filthy bus station bathroom stall. And I know that sounds kind of cliche, but that's really where I knew that I had to do something or I was going to fucking die. Pardon my language. But
3 minutes.
Oh, I thought that was 3 swear words. Okay.
Yeah,
Maybe.
Yeah, it was really low.
It's 3 minutes.
Really low. There were no high points.
It was that moment in the bus station?
Yeah, and I proved to myself after that I do not have a low point. I was completely
Rock
gone
bottom.
on this drug. There is no low point on that drug until you're dead.
So was
and,
the low...
and that's a blessing.
Was
See,
the low
that's what I
point-
was getting to.
I know this is specific. Was the low point right before you shot up in that bathroom, or was it after you were high and you're like, this, I've just reached bottom?
No, when I was high, I was fine. But being dope sick, there's no lower. Like, you want to die.
Well, that's what the guy that was on episode 14, the TED Talks guy, like, this is your standard suburban white guy. Okay?
Yeah, it blew my mind how long it took him.
And he, real quick, he's like, I didn't care if I lived or died. It's like all hope is gone because that.
The drug completely takes over.
When you synthetically put in endorphins and the things that make you feel good, your brain stops making them.
Right.
And if you keep doing that, your brain feels like it just doesn't even need to make them anymore. So then the time
And it doesn't.
Well, if you're bringing them in synthetically, but that period where you stop the synthetic intake and you allow your brain to kick back up can last months or even years.
Right.
Okay. That was the low moment. Tell us about how you actually, this is going to close out the show. And keep in mind, you're talking to people that are probably looking for answers. So how did you get rid of this, and what advice would you have for people listening?
No one has control over you except for you. And, we were made in God's image. And so we are the creators of our own existence. We are the controllers of our own existence. And so knowing that you have the power to do that in your own mind, you can then take that first step forward to get off the drug. And there will be many lows and many highs. But as long as the drug is not there, I'll have to bring you to my high point. It's about a year and a half after I was off the drug. I was sitting on the CATA bus, and there was this little girl with her mother, and she had her out of the stroller, and she had her on her lap, and this little girl was giggling, just giggling. And I just remember that was the first time, because the drug had completely killed off all emotion, any sense of who I was. But to hear her giggle, I laughed with her. And that was my high point. That was the high point when I started to feel again.
Like you're back
when I
and
started to
re-engaged
live
in
again.
life?
When I started to breathe again. Music sounded better.
Right.
Food tasted better. I started to come back. And I've been back ever since. And when my daughter was born, that was the nail that was the straw that broke the camel's back. Like, I knew that when I had a life that I had created, it was no longer about me. That was my drive to do better every day, to do what I can for this life. And it terrifies me that there is this drug on this planet with my daughter. It's my biggest fear. It was my mother's biggest fear to find me flopped over on a couch somewhere. It's my biggest fear now.
It's like the Carlos Segudo movie, which
So protect your babies.
Yeah.
Yes.
Amen, man.
So we're going to wrap this up. I'm going to leave you with this, and I'll just speak personally, because I've dealt with addictions and anxiety and depression my whole life, and I solved it by doing something I never thought was even a possibility to solve it, because I don't really have anxiety or depression anymore. I have bad days. Those are normal.
We all do.
And it's the same solution Derek Prince, who was in episode 14, had. Is he realized his anxiety and depression were actually, at the end of the day, it was demonic, just like the Bible said. And when he essentially went through his own exorcism, I mean, these words don't sound, these are bad buzzwords, all right, get it.
Mm-hmm.
It cured it for him. And it cured it for me, too. I'm a slave to cigarettes still. It's my last vice. Nothing else has me enslaved right now. And there's no way that happens without Jesus Christ. And at the end of the day, for people listening, your doctor only knows what he is told. If you've tried everything and you're not sure where else to go, what do you have to lose? Give Jesus a shot. Just pray to him tonight and just go, Jesus, if you're real, show up to me, heal me, and I'm yours. And you'd be surprised. I bet you he will show up in one way or another. At the end of the day, that is the point of this show. Anyone else have anything to add before we get out of here?
Or Ryan Seacrest.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you, Tommy.
America's sweetheart.
We'll have him next. Tommy, thank you for coming. We might want to have you
Yes.
back.
Great to have Raina back.
For
Yes,
sure.
thank
All right.
Young man,
Happy to
good
be back.
example. We need
Yes.
people like this, especially willing to talk about it. I'm
Awesome, man.
very-
Yeah, fight your
Nice to meet you.
addictions, everyone.
All right, everyone. We'll see you guys next week with another fun topic of some sort. We'll have it planned out by then. All right.
Yes.
Guys, peace out, guys.
About to say is fact. The secret organizations of the world power elite are no longer secret. They have planned and are now leading us into a one-world communism.
ODD TV. Take a journey with me deep inside the rabbit hole. Wake up, my friends, there's some things that you have to know. Everything you ever thought you knew, it has to go. For instance, NASA is the world's largest magic show. 9/11 was a planned demolition and Sandy Hook was a scam. Come on, man, are you tripping? Constant programming being crammed in your vision. Just take a step back and examine this prison. Turn on the news and they're trying to blind you. All they ever do is tell you lies and divide you. There's nowhere you can even hide, they'll find you. Illuminati all-seeing eye right behind you. It's about time you find out we're being lied to. They're attempting to control the mind that's inside you. Hide you from the power that designed you. Does anybody have a problem with this? Well, I do. I want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. They say they